How did they do that? Questions you wanted to ask, answers we set out to get.
They're underwater and under a year old, but this woman makes sure these water babies are not just happy, but safe. We show you how.
You can't hide from these high-speed snappers. How these pilots use candid cameras to spot what the enemy's up to.
It's his lucky day. He walks into a disaster, but comes out laughing. How Jack Dee never puts a foot out of place.
And moving stories and movie miracles. How this team bring back films from the dead, amongst them the oldest British film ever. These stories and more on tonight's How Do They Do That?
Thank you very much indeed. And welcome to the show, I must say. Esther, you're looking very glamorous tonight.
Just something I picked up in the sale.
Judging by the amount of shoulder you're showing, you must have got about a third off that, I would say. Would you know?
You cheeky devil.
You know what I mean.
I'm wearing this because later I'll be giving a concert performance. But don't worry, all will be revealed.
I think you've revealed quite enough, if you don't mind me saying so. Anyway, so we start off tonight with one of your letters, and it's from 12-year-old Hayden Roberts. Hello, Hayden. Hayden wrote to us from Wales, and he wants to know all about the latest Jack Dee ad on TV. That's the one where Jack walks through a whole series of disasters. So for Hayden and all his family who are with him tonight, here's how Jack Dee never knew what hadn't hit him. Never mind, you'll understand when you see this.
Admin are always on at me to liven up my advertisements.
Jack Dee strolls through his latest commercial. As usual, he's laid back and totally unruffled.
What we need's a bit of action, Jackie.
But every step he takes is a miracle of survival.
No gimmicks, no dancing.
Is this Jack's nonchalance pushed to the limit? Or did he just not realise how close he was to death? So how did they get him to do that?
The real challenge of this commercial was to take Jack, put him in lots of different death-defying situations. He's being crushed by this or almost run over or falling off that, and to really make people believe that he was there.
Admin are always on at me to...
For a lot of this, Daniel and the team used what's called chroma key. Jack is filmed in front of a plain blue background. Later, Daniel can replace the blue screen with any background he wants, like speeding cars.
To get this background, Daniel filmed 14 rally cars. He gave each car a number and then worked out the pattern and order in which they were to drive past the camera. Between the cars, there had to be just the right gaps for Jack to walk through. And to do that, Daniel carefully calculated the distance Jack would walk and the exact time it would take. This wasn't easy. The cars really were screaming along at 70 miles an hour, and each one had to appear to just miss Mr. Dee. But how did they get this shot without wrecking their camera?
Extra smooth taste.
Well, Daniel placed an angled mirror on the track and filmed the reflection of the truck. On film, it would seem as if the truck was hurtling straight at the camera, having picked up one of Jack's penguins on the way.
I told the stunt driver to drive up to the mirror at about 30 miles an hour and bump into the mirror. In fact, what he did was he put his foot down, went at 70 and smashed straight into the mirror. We decided that was the take we'd use because it wouldn't do another one.
I don't think it's enough to talk about its extra smooth taste.
Then, in post-production, special effects director Tim Webber took the shots of the speeding cars and of Jack walking in front of the blue screen and put them together. But this wasn't convincing enough. It still looked as if they almost cared about their star.
The real key to making the shot look dangerous was to add extra layers of cars once we'd superimposed Jack on the background. So within the computer we layered a number of cars on top of him, just behind him, just missing him, to give it that extra edge of danger.
to liven up my advertisement.
It's this layering technique that makes this shot so spectacular.
They just don't get it, do they?
It took several takes, but the Tower of Cars had to fall in exactly the same place every time. Otherwise, when Jack was added to the shot, it might look as though he'd been flattened. So the Tower of Cars were fastened to a reinforced metal pipe. At the bottom of the pipe, there was a fixed hinge. The hinge made sure the angle of the fall was always the same. The pipe made sure the cars were always anchored together.
Even though we knew where the tower was going to hit, it actually was quite dangerous, so we had to build a special crash box around the camera, and all the crew had to stand back, and when it hit the ground, it was like an earthquake.
When he worked on the shot, it was Tim's job to make Jack appear to be right inside the cars, not in front of them. So how did he do that? He used the process called layering. With his computer, he drew around every frame of the car roof. This gave him a matte, a moving black and white shape that exactly matched the outline of the falling car roof. Tim used this as a layer in front of Jack. Then he put the actual roof back in. So now Jack seems to be right inside.
If Jack was really standing underneath the Tower of Cars, they would have cast a large shadow over him. So we used the computer to darken Jack down so that it appears that the tower is actually falling on top of him. As a finishing touch, we then add a cloud of smoke as the cars crash down on the ground, which helps blend the whole shot together.
What we need's a bit of action, Jackie. They just don't get it, do they? Well,
So after going to all that trouble, what's Daniel's favourite bit of the ad?
My favourite bit of the ad is a bit which actually nobody notices. It's when the pipe lifts up into the air, it swings towards the camera. We had to do a completely different shot, just the back of his head disappearing down the pipe. It's very subtle, but you really believe he's in that pipe.
definitely no penguins.
And how about Tim?
In a pub.
My favourite bit of the commercial is when we added a seagull flying behind Jack as he's balancing on the girder. A lot of people wouldn't notice it, but it's the kind of touch that I really enjoy.
So, if this is a bit dull...
But I wonder if Jack enjoyed it all.
When Jack saw the final ad, it was a surprise to him because none of the backgrounds had been there when I filmed his bit. He's known for having a sort of straight-faced demeanour, and when he saw it, he actually went like this. So I think he did enjoy it, actually.
So you're going to put the pub background in afterwards?
Yeah, that's right, Jack. Yeah, we're going to put it in later.
Now, here's an amazing rescue story. It's about an old reel of film that had been crumbling away in a shed for years. When it was rescued, it turned out that it was the oldest movie in Britain, an unbelievable 101 years old. The sad thing was, it was in ruins and completely unwatchable. But thanks to some incredible experts, it's been restored. And tonight, you'll see it like new. How did they do that?
This is the British Film Institute's National Archive. It's a rich treasure house. On these shelves are some of the oldest films in the world. Although many early films have been lost or rotted away, these ones are safe and sound, or in most cases, safe and silent. In these air-conditioned vaults, there are over 300,000 of them, and many have been brilliantly restored, thanks to the team at the National Archive, headed by Dr. Henning Skow.
My father was a cinema operator, projectionist, and it's strange, once you get celluloid in your blood, it tends to stay there. Because I love the medium, then it gives me tremendous pleasure to actually contribute to the long-term preservation of it, and I've learned a tremendous amount of history just from watching films.
The team don't have the resources to restore every old film they get, but they do examine each one to see if it's important. And in January 1995, a small rotting roll arrived. It had no title, nothing to identify it, but incredibly, once they'd done their work, the team knew exactly when and where it was filmed, and even who the cameraman was. How did they do that? Well, the National Film and Television Archive had made a TV appeal for old films. This one had been bought as part of a job lot at an auction. The owner had never even looked at it. Indeed, he was going to chuck it on a bonfire. Luckily, though, he sent it in. Like many of the films they deal with, it was scratched, faded, and covered in grime, and it had shrunk so that it wouldn't fit any projector. Henning and the team thought this was a film worth restoring. What they didn't know was that it would turn out to be a jewel in their collection.
Like all early movies, this one had been shot on nitrate film. The trouble is, nitrate film is an unstable material. As it ages, layers of film can stick together, become brittle, and even crumble into dust. It's also highly flammable. The heat from just a projector bulb can make it burst into flames. So Henning and his team make sure all their nitrate films are safe from fire. They keep them in special refrigerated bunkers with huge tanks above them holding 4,000 gallons of water.
Unless we really look after them and duplicate them, then they're going to self-destruct.
Before they make a copy of a film, they have to get the original into as good a condition as possible. First, they deal with the perforations. Those are the little holes at the sides of the film. On this film, many of the perforations were torn or missing, so the team patched them up with spares from other pieces of film. Next, all the damaged splices or joins in the film are mended. Then, the film is cleaned. Normally, this is done by machine, but many films are so fragile and valuable that they have to be done by hand. The archive has a priceless collection of early films showing previous generations at work and play. These films have to be painstakingly copied because the originals are so brittle they may disintegrate the first time they're projected. So, to make a copy, the team photograph the original one frame at a time onto a strip of new film, and they make sure each frame matches the one before. How? Well, to start with, this computer works out how much the next frame to be filmed needs to be made darker or lighter to match its predecessor.
When an old film shrinks, some frames shrink more than others, and the frames end up different sizes. This means that the picture would jump about on a screen, but the archive prevents this. First, they enlarge the least damaged frame onto a television screen. On the screen, they mark a set of essential reference lines. Using these marks, they can line up each frame in the correct position by hand.
After 6 months' work, it was time for the team to see exactly what they'd got. It was just over 40 seconds long. It was a horse race, but it was much more than that. What they'd rescued was the oldest datable film in British history.
Clearly it was the 1890s. It was clearly at the Derby. There was the grandstand of Epsom. I knew all that very well. I knew what the 1896 Derby looked like, the films of the 97, 98, 98, 100. It didn't seem to be any one of those. It also had featured a close finish between 3 horses, and that's how the 1895 Derby finished. Although we don't have a photograph, there is a written description of when the film was shown in 1896, a year later, saying that there was a canter before the race, the finish, and then crowds pouring onto the course, and that's exactly what you get.
From his knowledge of early films, Look could even work out who the cameraman had been.
We had a dated picture of Bert Akers, the cameraman who took the film. As we know, 29th of May 1895. From that, we could work out where he was positioned, and the angle that he was filming at matches up with the film. And the camera he was using, we know it's the first motion picture camera used in this country. So, from that evidence, we worked it out.
It was a 1,000,000-to-1 long shot. On the very centenary of British film, this 100-year-old treasure had been saved. Henning and his team had a winner.
I feel very privileged to be able to participate in this preservation process and pass on this heritage to future generations.
And it's a heritage that contains not just the great stars of early cinema, but priceless examples of the first time ever that our ancestors were captured as moving, living people.
Now, watching that film with us is Richard Akers. Richard is the grandson of the man who shot that film, what turned out to be the oldest British film in history, and Henning Scoe, who's from the National Film and Television Archive. How come the film fell out of family hands in the first place, Richard?
It could have been when my grandparents moved home. I know on one occasion they did leave quite a few things in an attic, and they went back to retrieve them, and the new owners denied them access.
And then what happened?
The gentleman down in Dorset collects radios.
Yeah.
He went to Wimborne to an auction and bought a radio, and with it came a canister of films, and he put them behind a shed, and there they laid for 4 years. And he was listening to a television programme where they requested anybody who had any old films, would they get in touch with them.
And then the rest is history,
yes,
as they say. And what history it was, Henning. To anybody out there who may think they have something like this up in their attic, what would you say?
Well, it's very, very important that that the National Film and Television Archive is notified of it, because there's so little nitrate film in existence. It's really unstable, and as little as 5% survive. So whatever we can lay our hands on, we'd certainly like to get.
Well, it's a marvellous story, and you do marvellous work at the archive, and hope you get a few more examples to show in all their glory. Thank you both very much indeed.
Attention! Stand up straight, you horrible lot. Right, now I've got your attention. I'll tell you about our next film. It's about an elite group of soldiers from America who perform an incredible drill. And I mean incredible when I say incredible.
These guys, I believe you, have turned square bashing into a combination of split-second timing and showbiz spectacle. Here's how they do it. Oh, at ease.
This is the US Marines Silent Drill Team. A routine that's spectacular and immaculate. In military terms, this is a show on the scale of Riverdance. Each soldier performs hundreds of moves, every one executed with absolute precision, and they do it without a single word of command. It's as precise as anything you'll catch on Broadway or in London's West End, and it all began 40 years ago.
In the late 1950s, the Commandant of the Marine Corps was invited by his British counterpart to attend a searchlight tattoo. And at that time, we had nothing along those lines. And he saw this wonderful ceremony, this military pageantry, just knocked him out. And he came back to the barracks here and he said, I want one of those. And being the Commandant of the Marine Corps and a 4-star general, he got one.
So how did they get this amazing team together?
You will do what you're told to do, when you're told to do it, how you're told to do it.
Yes, sir. They start with selection. And if you can hack that kind of talk, you just might make it.
We look for that inner discipline, inner focus. Or most of it needs to come from within. Their pursuit of perfection, desire to excel.
Recruits quite literally queue up to be selected for this elite squad.
When I got selected to join the drill platoon, my heart wanted to stop that day. I didn't know there was nothing more I could find out that day that would make me feel any more better about myself and about being a Marine.
After a year's basic training, the chosen few embark on a punishing 3-month advanced course in the sweltering Californian heat. It's too late to turn back now.
Physically, it's very tiring. They drill in the beginning anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day, and just a lot of repetition, to build muscle memory, to get perfection down in their sequence.
Muscle memory. That means the moves are practiced so many times, the muscles literally remember what to do.
I never actually sat back and counted it, but there's hundreds of movements. People think no way you can remember all of that. It's all muscle memory after a while. You've been doing it so long, and it's just embedded in your mind so hard.
And that's just as well. You wouldn't want to make a mistake with one of these. A heavy-duty World War II rifle, complete with bayonet.
The reason we use the M1 is it's a perfect weapon for drill. It's very well balanced. It weighs 10.5 pounds, so it has some heft to it. And it looks like one would expect an infantry rifle to look.
Eventually, the hundreds of hopeful recruits are whittled down to just 36 of the very best. Only 24 actually perform. The rest are on the subs bench, standing by in case of sickness or injury. Remember, there's no drumbeat to guide them. There's no one yelling instructions at them. Yet they manage to perform routines like this without a single mistake. How do they do that? Well, they have a few tricks up their sleeves.
Sticky tape, for instance, plays an unexpectedly large role in making sure the drill team doesn't get its collective knickers in a twist, so to speak. The Marine's hat is firmly taped to his head. Now we know why they have those haircuts. And they wear these special white leather gloves. When they're dipped in water, they stick to the rifles like glue. And the team certainly sticks together during its dazzling performance. Not a single soldier out of rhythm, not a single soldier out of step.
It is an art and a science. It's like being on Broadway, the same type of dedication you would expect from a fine symphony orchestra. These people are masters at their craft. They are the maestros of what they do.
It's taken months of grueling training, but this is perfection in action. And for those who make it, it's worth it.
You go out, when you step out there, and you have thousands of people staring you in your face, and they're like, wow, these guys are awesome. It pays off the most then.
And you can see why. It's a breathtaking routine that combines military might with showbiz glamour, if you get the point. I wouldn't argue. Would you?
Okay, and amongst the stories we still have for you on tonight's How Do They Do That? The wonderful water babies, relaxed, happy, but underwater. Just how do they do that?
And the deadly game of hide and seek, how these pilots put the enemy right in the frame. Now, I'd love to be able to play the piano, but I can't. How many of us regret not having taken music lessons when we were kids? But tonight, all that's going to change, because with us is the man who's going to turn me into a brilliant pianist in just 6 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, Rainer Hirsch. Teach me how to play like that?
I definitely can, but of course, to teach you, Esther, I have to take you back to my first piano lessons, which were when I learned these, the Chopin Preludes, which were the first pieces I played. Now, these preludes, as far as I know, are the only pieces in classical music to be named after a type of Japanese car, and this is approximately how I played it. It goes like this.
Expressions vital.
Well, I was only 8, but obviously, even when you're 8, still quite hard to find your way to those keys and play the right notes. So I tried to devise a way of being able to play the piano without having to do all that practice, which I did using these like sticks. And as you can see, they're sticks essentially with notches cut in them, so that when you press them down on the keys, they play a chord and create a pretty similar effect. So I've got some sticks with me here. Let's see if we can use them to recreate the Chopin Prelude number 20. Here we go.
ones with sticks.
Yes, if you practice with these sticks, you can get quite advanced and play some difficult tunes. Do you like ballet music?
I do indeed.
Well, let me give it a go. Give you a little twiddle, and let's see if we can play something interesting on this piano here.
You can't kid me, your fingers never touched that piano.
They certainly didn't, but inside you can see what's hidden inside this piano, a piano roll, and that's what plays the notes and tells the keys what to do.
Anything else interesting and wacky about this piano?
Yeah, the best part is you can adjust not only how you play and pump, but also there are controls here to speed up and slow down. Listen to this.
And that's your funky club mix fast disco groove sound.
It certainly is.
Am I going to reign supreme on this piano, though? Is this the piano you're going to let me loose on?
No, we're going to go over to the GTI, the Formula One, the Damon Hill of player pianos, which has been specially reserved for you, Esther. It's one of these.
And this is my third lesson.
It is. A little box of tricks. Let's see if we can get to perform one. Play to me. Thank you, the piano. Obviously, shut up. The piano is obviously... Shut up! All right, the piano, obviously.
And how did it do that?
Now, inside this, obviously, computer disk, reading the disk. The computer is in touch with all of these keys here, and it tells the keys not only when to play, but also how loud, whether to play short, staccato, or legato, long, and you can fiddle around with it endlessly.
We've gone from sticks to discs in a couple of moments, but is it still the same principle?
Inside, of course, any computer is a binary code, and that's basically what's on those sticks there, and also what's in the piano roll, on-off switches, essentially. But, of course, the advantage with this is there are sensors in these, meaning that you can not only play from the disc, but you can also record to the disc, and that's what I did earlier on. I've got something prepared, a little duet for us to play. I'll be playing the top part, and you'll be playing the bottom part.
Now, is there anything else, any handy hints that I should have so I look like a true pianist?
Obviously, while we get going, the important thing is you can't play the piano, but you've got to look as though you can. That involves, of course, Esther, swaying, and if you get lost, just sway along with me.
Do we sway together?
We can choose
or apart?
The sort of Valdunican sway, like that, or the sort of knocking into one another sway.
That sway.
Yes. Now, so ladies and gentlemen, we present Esther McVeigh doing a sway, a little duet with May.
Without any further delay.
In the key of A.
You poet, you.
Thank you. Esther.
Takes me back, you and me, an old coward.
Look where he is now.
Oh, I think you did a dud note then, darling. Ladies and gentlemen, Rainer Hirsch.
No doubt about it, that was a gas. Talking about gas, most of us take it into our homes every day. We can't see it, but we always know it's there. It's got no temperature, but it does keep us nice and warm. Common, our household gas. Nothing special about that, you might think. But on closer inspection, you'll be amazed at just how much ingenuity and technical skill it takes to bring it to us, ready to use the snap of a finger. Here's how it's done.
A flick of a switch, the spark of a match, and the heat is on. As they say, that's the beauty of gas. Heating homes or fueling furnaces, 19 million of us depend on it, and 20,000 people work day and night to get it to us. The story begins millions of years ago. Back then, Britain was covered by a swampy tropical forest. When the trees died, they decayed into a mixture of oil and gas. This became embedded in rocks and eventually buried beneath the sea.
Today, the gas is trapped more than 3 miles down, and that's the first challenge, finding it. Geologists study the layers of rock, and by bouncing down sound waves off these layers, they can pinpoint the exact position of the gas. Then they drill deep down under this massive platform and pump it to shore through miles of pipes like these. But before the gas is sent on its way, they have to do various things to it. The first stop is at one of these massive terminals, where the gas is cleaned and dried.
Next, they make sure that the flame will be exactly the same in every house. So when we cook at, say, Gas Mark 5, it always burns with the same intensity. They check that out in the calorimeter room. Here they measure the energy levels or calorific values of the gas by burning it and calculating how much heat is given off. If the readings are too low, they mix in other gases until the levels are consistent. Before the gas continues on the next part of its journey, they add an odorant to give it that familiar smell. And that's where these guys come in. They're known as calibrated noses. Here in a specially sealed chamber, they sniff a sample of the gas to check if it has the right strength of smell. It's a vital job because it's the smell that warns us gas is there.
With the gas now clean, mixed and smelling just right, they can move it anywhere in the country via 250,000 kilometres of pipes. How? With more than 40 of these enormous jet engines, they can shove the gas along at 25 miles per hour. In fact, they can move 3 tons of gas every second. They store a lot of it at plants like this, where the gas is cooled down into a liquid, so it's ready to go whenever it's needed. And incredibly, they know exactly how much we need, when we need it, and where we need it. How? That's done at System Control, where Eric Fowler is one of the men in charge.
We have to carefully match the supply and demand of gas. We get weather forecasts directly from the Met Office, and we feed those through computer models to predict how much gas people will need. Now, we include in those computer models things like the temperature forecast, but we also put in other things like what we call miserability factor. That's if it's going to rain, people get cold and wet, go home and turn the heating up.
Eric and the team send the gas on its way to one of these, a gas holder. You've probably noticed them on the outskirts of towns. They go up when the gas is pumped to them and down when your local gas company takes it out.
But all this activity can make the pipes a bit grungy.
OK, we're ready to launch the pig.
OK, ready for launch.
And believe it or not, this is how they make sure the gas keeps on flowing. They send pigs in to clean the pipes. Who'd have thought it?
People always find it rather funny when we talk about putting pigs inside pipelines. We have to explain that it's not something cruel and they don't need to phone the RSPCA.
The pigs are forced along the pipes by the pressure of the gas. OK, so they're not real pigs. These pigs are huge balls weighing half a ton each, which can push half a mile of water and gunge in front of them. Back at base, the team keep an eye on the whole system, day and night. So wherever we live and whatever the conditions, we'll always get the gas we need.
Now, we know how much people rely on a gas supply. From the hugest industries to a granny in a flat somewhere. People need the gas to keep warm. We work very hard to keep that gas going. The country relies on us.
So the wheels of industry keep on turning and our home fires keep on burning.
Well, in a break from tradition on the BBC, it's time for a commercial break.
Tomando cada día Bio de Danone y renovarás tu equilibrio interior para sentirte tan sano y feliz como el primer día. Bio de Danone con Bifidus Activo.
Now that was interesting, wasn't it?
Well, it's a technique that's being used more and more in adverts and on television.
It's a famous fairy story come true. And there's no camera trickery here, no computer capers either. These little charmers really are underwater and really swimming. But how? Answer: someone has to teach them. Someone like Lauren Heston, once a water babe in her own right, the grown-up kind, working as an underwater model.
I've always had a big passion for the water, and I worked on films and commercials as part of a dive team. And then I worked on a commercial in 1986, which kind of changed the way I looked at most things, and it certainly changed my career.
In the commercial, Lauren met a tiny baby swimming happily in the Red Sea.
I just couldn't believe it. I was just completely overwhelmed.
And it was at that magic moment that Lauren knew she wanted to teach babes to swim underwater. That's what she's doing here with Tiny Joe. First step is to introduce him gently to the water. The temperature is at body heat, 35 degrees, and that makes him completely comfortable.
If you take a baby into the water that's very young, they have no conscious feelings about water. They don't realise that it's a dangerous environment. Whereas an adult, we'd have that fear. Or even as an older child, there might be some fear of the unknown. But only if a parent or a carer is panicking about it do they then transmit that fear to the baby.
This bit is fun, but it's also the way the baby gets to know and trust Lauren before the lesson starts for real. Then Joe begins to learn the basics of swimming. Things like leg kicking and grabbing the rail for a breather.
Well done. Well done.
But how do babies stop themselves swallowing water when they're fully submerged?
As a baby or an adult, we have a function called the diving reflex, which as we go underwater goes into operation. This is mainly called the epiglottis, which is a muscle at the top of the airway, which will close off. And even if we try to breathe in underwater, we can't.
Joe's now ready for his big underwater debut.
Before we do this, we do a couple of signals on their head. We say, ready, go. Ready, go. This is a little warning to Joe that he will be swimming under. And so very, very gently, and with a full submersion, we say, Joe, ready, go.
Joe is learning tactics which could even save his life should he ever accidentally fall in the water.
Ready, go, turn. And as Joe's under, a little twist back to me. Well done. Well done. One little girl fell into a lake last year. She was a year old, but because of the training, she knew how to turn back to the side. She knew how to kick up and reach out and hold on. So the safety aspect is very important. Off we go then, Joe. Big kicks. Ready, go.
This is Joe's big moment. His first underwater solo. Straight to a very proud mum.
Well done. Well done.
This little fella's a bit more advanced. He's into commercials. He's doing an ad for yogurt with Lauren and her longtime colleague, ace underwater cameraman, Mike Valentine.
Initially, I was almost too scared to film them because I was so worried. Lauren put my mind at rest, as well as the mothers who are happy to let their child be taken into this alien environment.
Alien environment? This little tiddler looks like he lives underwater. But how do you get pictures like this?
The trick of getting that amazing shot is patience. On some shoots, we've had over 18 babies, only to get one baby and for me to capture that one moment.
I've worked on some really, really lovely films and lovely commercials, but nothing compares to actually being in the water with new life. And if we can make beautiful films from that, that's even better.
Hey, gang! I hear we got some new competition down here. Guy by the name of Joe. Look out, here he comes.
Right now, Eamon, you know when you take some photos and then you have that reel of film developed and you get the photos back and some of them are blurred?
Some of them are, yes.
And that's because either you or the people you're taking the photograph of have moved. Annoying, isn't it?
Very annoying, Esther. Very, very annoying. And if that is a problem, think of what it's like, Esther, to take a photo from 100 feet up, travelling at 500 miles an hour. Because if you were in the RAF's 41 Fighter Squadron, that would be your job every day. And just to add to the pressure, people's lives might depend on you getting it right.
Warfare is a very fast business. The hardware of battle is moved swiftly from one location to another, and in order to do their job properly, the peacekeepers have to know what's where. So how do they do that? With good military intelligence, aided by pictures like these. Modern aerial reconnaissance offers the enemy photo opportunities they can't avoid, even if they wanted to. There's no hiding place for those secret missiles, nor private palaces of beleaguered tyrants like Saddam Hussein. 41 Fighter Squadron is the RAF's reconnaissance intelligence unit. They take shots that put even high-tech satellites to shame.
We can take pictures that span miles and miles, which we can use for mapping, or we can take pictures narrowing down to your house, narrowing down to your car, and then we could take photos of yourself outside with your dog in the front garden.
So how is it all done? Like this. The squadron flies Jaguar jets, under which are slung pods, carrying a batch of 5 highly sophisticated cameras. Each camera shoots a different angle, and with them all working together, the pilot can cover the whole horizon. The pilots generally fly alone on their missions. 2 jets are easier to shoot at than 1. But then, 41 Squadron is used to facing danger in the air. It's one of the oldest units in service, dating back to the First World War. In dangerous territory, they can still get a good picture up to 10 miles away from the target by using their long-range camera. The results are amazing, as this shot of Sarajevo town centre proves. But how do they get intimate shots like this taken over Iraq? By getting really close to the subject. This means coming in very low and very fast. The Jaguars travel at nearly 500 miles an hour, just 100 feet above the ground. As the pilot approaches the mission destination, he switches on the cameras. A button on the joystick is used to mark specific targets on the film. It's not the ideal conditions to take pictures, but the pilots still get great shots.
We have very little time to think about it, of course, but we still have to think of putting the image in the right place with the sun behind us so that we can see it, and actually rolling the airplane and manoeuvring it so that the photo frames it nicely.
The pilot wastes no time in getting back to base, and the ground crew wastes no time in getting to the film. It's all about speed. Hostile tanks, once spotted, can quickly disappear to somewhere else. They have to be pinpointed. Inside this lab are the fastest film processing machines in the world. They date back to the 60s, but they're still the best in the business. 600 feet of film is developed in just 5 minutes. As soon as the film's off the machine, it's time for the photographic interpreters to take over. Their eyes are second to none. They know instantly what to look for, even with hundreds of feet of film to scan. As the pictures whiz by, they watch out for the areas the pilot has marked with his button. All the photos are in black and white because our eyes are much better at seeing different shades of light and dark without the distraction of color. It's the unusual things that catch their eye, as with a picture like this. In nature, there are very few straight lines, so immediately the interpreters know something's up.
Attention drawn to the shadows thrown by the sun on a particular spot of the print. We can see the barrel of a gun pointing up into the air. These are from 3 pieces of artillery.
Even when all the straight lines are camouflaged and there are no shadows, these guys can still score. How? Because one of the Jaguar's 5 cameras is infrared and detects things by heat. Unlike the other films, this is a continuous image. Here, at a road junction, white outlines stand out distinctly. In this closer picture, the outlines of tanks are clearly visible under their camouflage netting. Individual soldiers show up as white dots because of the heat given off by their heads. The interpreters can even tell what sort of vehicles have passed through the area. How? by a technique called track reading.
Most tracking here is by wheeled vehicles. However, this particular track here, which is quite an angular turn, could indicate a tracked vehicle.
Tracked vehicles usually mean tanks, and tanks mean trouble. Once they've found the tracks, they then trace them round the picture until they find the bad guys. In winter, tanks are easily spotted by the snow thrown up at the sides. Normal vehicles don't do this, and here's the culprit, a Russian-made T-54 battle tank. The Reconnaissance Intelligence Unit's ability to spot those tanks helped bring about peace in Bosnia. But it wasn't only tanks they found. When a UN armoured car disappeared mysteriously one day, 41 Squadron quickly found it. How did they do that? Through a hole in a roof. It had been stolen by the Serbs and was returned soon after this photographic evidence was waved at them.
There are limits to what we can do. We can't take photos looking through brick walls, but then if we're looking for a bunch of tanks, they're not likely to be in somebody's garage. Even then, if they leave the garage door open, we can probably get the photo.
At just a few hours' notice, the whole unit can be packed up and flown to any corner of the world. And wherever they go, you can always bank on them getting amazing snaps. During the Gulf War, they even caught the odd wave from an Iraqi. And who knows who they might snap on a good day? Could this be the man himself? Smile, Saddam, you're on Candid Camera.
And for once, we can put them in the picture, because with us tonight, a group of chaps from 41 Squadron. Smile, lads, you're in the picture. Right in the frame. Well, that's the show for us tonight, but do join us next week for these stories.
Aiming for a world record. How these high flyers are sharing the challenge.
The case of the mountain sleigh ride to disaster. How this super sleuth solved the mystery.
And it's the biggest animal cast since Noah's Ark. The secrets of these fierce creatures, the stars of the new John Cleese movie.
So all that to look forward to on next week's How Do They Do That?
So from both of us, good night.
Good night.